It started as a love story, or so it seemed, a story of young dreams, quiet whispers, and stolen moments. But what began in secrecy would spiral into a web of lies, betrayal, and ultimately, an end no one saw coming. She was the girl everyone loved, the kind of cheerleader who didn't just lead her team, but lifted everyone around her. Young, ambitious, and adored by her friends, she was the heart of the school. And then, there was him, her boyfriend, protective, passionate, and always by her side. But what no one knew was the insecurity he buried deep inside, hidden behind every smile, every "I love you." And finally, the coach, respected, trusted, and well-loved by the community. With charm that could light up any room, it was easy to miss what lay beneath. Because the coach, too, carried secrets. Secrets that no one wanted to talk about. From the outside, everything looked perfect. A small town filled with happy faces and dreams of tomorrow. But we all know how quickly a perfect picture can shatter. And for these 3 lives, the cracks were already starting to show. It began small. A glance here, a whispered word there. The kind of moments that seem harmless, until they're not. What really happened behind closed doors? How did a secret relationship lead to betrayal and end in a moment of pure horror? In the next hour, we'll uncover a story that stunned an entire community. We'll explore how love turned into jealousy and how trust turned into tragedy. Before the chaos, there were 3 lives full of hope. A girl who wanted to shine, a boy who wanted to hold on, and a coach who struggled with their own truth. But in the end, none of them would escape the consequences. Stay with me as we tell their story, a story of forbidden love, broken trust, and a terrible act that changed everything. If you want to uncover every shocking detail, stay till the end. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a story like this again. The whispers began small. A glance here, a smile there. Nothing loud, nothing obvious. But whispers have a way of growing, and secrets, no matter how carefully kept, never stay buried. She was the kind of girl everyone admired. The perfect teammate, the perfect student. Always staying late to practice, always pushing herself to be better. But what started as ambition soon led her down a path she couldn't turn back from. It was just encouragement at first. Words meant to inspire. Compliments that felt harmless. But sometimes, even the smallest words carry weight. A glance here, a quiet conversation there. Nothing anyone else would notice, but enough for her to feel something she couldn't explain. A thrill, connection, and that's how it began. Day by day, the whispers grew louder, at least in her mind. The secret meetings, the stolen moments, they all seemed harmless until they weren't. He noticed. Of course he did. The late practices, the sudden distance between them. He didn't have proof, only a feeling. And feelings, when ignored, can turn into something darker. It was nights like these that changed everything. Nights when the gym was empty, when no one was watching, when the line between right and wrong felt easy to cross. She knew it wasn't right. She told herself it was harmless. But deep down, she could feel the weight of every word, every glance. "This is wrong," she whispered to herself. But the thrill of secrecy was intoxicating. One step closer, that's all it took. Because in that moment, a line was crossed. A line that could never be redrawn. He wasn't stupid. He knew her better than anyone else. The late nights, the distant looks, the way her voice caught when he asked too many questions. At first, he told himself he was imagining it. But doubt is a dangerous thing. Once it plants itself in your mind, it grows until it's all you can see. He asked her about it, softly at first, then louder. "What's going on? Why are you always staying late?" She said it was nothing, just practice. But he could hear it in her voice. She was hiding something. A secret like this doesn't stay quiet forever, and she knew that. Every text message she deleted, every glance she stole, it was only a matter of time. Sometimes we lie to ourselves because the truth is too hard to face. But deep down, She knew what they were doing couldn't last. 3 lives, 1 secret, and the cracks were starting to show. Secrets have a way of coming out, no matter how deep you bury them. And when this one did, it would tear everything apart. The whispers had started quietly, like they always do. At first, it was just suspicion. A glance that lingered too long, a laugh that sounded a little too private. But whispers have a way of growing louder until you can't ignore them anymore. He had noticed the change. She wasn't the same. The late practices, the distant eyes, the way she looked at him like she was carrying something heavy. And there, across the parking lot, it hit him. The truth. It was supposed to be them against the world. That's what love is, right? 2 people hand in hand. But now, she was slipping through his fingers. And the more he tried to hold on, the further she pulled away. She never meant for it to get this far. That's what she told herself. It wasn't love, not really. Just attention that made her feel alive in a way she hadn't before. But she wasn't a bad person. She didn't want to hurt him. She didn't want to hurt anyone. Trust isn't easy to break. But when it's shattered, it leaves cuts too deep to heal. The coach knew too. Of course they knew. People talk. Whispers travel. And secrets can only stay buried for so long before they claw their way to the surface. What was it, really? A connection? A mistake? For the coach, it wasn't just about her, it was about who they were, who they wanted to be. And the lines between right and wrong blurred so slowly, they didn't see it happening. They told themselves it didn't mean anything, that no one would find out. But guilt has a way of creeping in, even when you refuse to let it. He tried to let it go, to believe her lies, but jealousy burns slow and hot. And once the fire starts, it's almost impossible to put out. Jealousy made him see everything differently. Every smile, every glance, every moment they spent together. He couldn't stop wondering what she saw in the coach that he didn't have. And with every question, his anger grew. 3 people. 3 hearts tangled in a mess of love, lies, and betrayal. None of them knew how this would end, but they could feel it coming. The moment when everything would fall apart. When love turns to possession and jealousy becomes deadly, no one gets to walk away untouched. Secrets have a way of finding the light. They may start small. Hidden glances, quiet conversations, stolen moments. But the truth doesn't stay silent forever. And when it finally speaks, it screams. It started with the whispers, a rumor spreading like wildfire through the halls. People she once called friends suddenly had nothing kind to say. Every step she took felt heavier than the last. Every look was filled with judgment. She tried to block it out, to pretend it didn't matter. But the silence of being alone was louder than any rumor. For the coach, the walls were closing in. The truth was out there now, whispered in staff meetings, passed around the parents at Friday's game. The respect they once held was slipping through their fingers, and the fear of losing everything grew by the second. And him? He couldn't escape it either. The girl he loved had betrayed him, and everyone knew it. But somehow, that wasn't enough to stop the hurt. His anger grew with every whisper, every look people gave him in the halls. They weren't just judging her, they were judging him too. And he couldn't stand it. When love turns to heartbreak, it leaves behind something dangerous, something no one can predict. She thought it would pass, that people would get bored and things would go back to normal. But deep down, she knew better. Once a secret is out, there's no going back. Her world felt smaller with every passing day. Every door she opened led her deeper into loneliness. The coach had always been the leader, the one people admired. Now they were the target. And every choice they made felt like walking on glass. One wrong step and it would all shatter. All it took was one mistake to erase years of respect. He didn't want to be this person. He didn't want to feel this way. But love and anger are 2 sides of the same coin. And once it flips, you don't know which side will land face up. 3 people, 3 lives unraveling all at once. None of them knew where this would end, but they all felt it coming. The storm was on the horizon, and there was no stopping it now. Secrets can't stay buried forever, and when they rise to the surface, they destroy everything in their path. It was supposed to be the end of a regular day, but sometimes all it takes is one moment. One single moment to turn everything into chaos. It started here, in the locker room, empty but for the three of them. She was trying to leave, trying to escape the suffocating tension that had been growing between them. But there was no escape. He stood in the doorway, eyes wild with anger. "You thought you could get away with this?" he yelled, his voice sharp, cutting through the stillness. She tried to calm him down. She didn't want this. She didn't want any of it. But the words just couldn't come out. The guilt, the fear, it paralyzed her. He said, "I trusted you. I loved you. And you." The words were like fire. Each one burned deeper into the cheerleader's heart. She had betrayed him, and the pain in his eyes was unbearable. But it didn't matter. Nothing she said could undo what had already happened. Nothing could erase the truth that hung in the air between them. And then the coach, the third part of this tangled mess. They tried to intervene, tried to calm things down, but they weren't prepared for what came next. "You ruined everything. You ruined us," says her boyfriend. In that moment, it wasn't just anger. It was something darker, something he couldn't control anymore. The words turned to action. In the chaos, something snapped. One punch, one decision, and in that one moment, love turned into something unrecognizable. The coach tried to stop it. They tried to save her, but it was too late. When the dust settled, the truth was clear. The cheerleader was gone, and the boyfriend was left standing in the middle of it all. A broken heart, a broken promise, and a crime that could never be undone. And just like that, everything changed. The life they knew gone. In the blink of an eye, a love turned deadly. The consequences of their actions were now set in stone. No more secrets, no more lies, just the cold reality of what happens when love turns to rage. And when it does, no one is left untouched. One moment, just one tragic moment, could change everything. Could take a dream, a family, and a community, and leave them broken. The aftermath is always the hardest part. The pain, the regrets, and the silence that follows. For the boyfriend, the end came swiftly. The police arrived. He didn't fight it. He couldn't. The weight of what he had done hung over him, crushing every part of him. Arrested and charged with murder, his confession came quietly. His words, shaky and broken, filled the air with guilt. "I never meant for it to happen," he said, his voice barely a whisper. But it didn't matter. No one could undo what had been done. A life was taken, and nothing could bring it back. And then there was her family, the ones left behind. The mother who would never hear her daughter's voice again. The father who would never walk her down the aisle. The grief was endless, a heavy cloud hanging over their home. "We never saw the warning signs. I wish we could go back, see the little things we missed. Maybe then," she trails off, her voice choking on the words. A mother's guilt, a mother's heartbreak. The cheerleader was gone, but the memory of her lingered in the halls. Her bright smile, her energy, the sound of her laughter, all erased in an instant, but never truly gone. Her friends, her classmates, they all felt the loss. It wasn't just her family. A town, a whole community, was left reeling. They had known her, loved her, and now they had to figure out how to go on without her. The coach, too, was lost. They had once been a role model, someone admired and respected. Now they were nothing more than the person who had failed everyone. The weight of their own guilt was too much to carry. Their reputation, their career, all gone. The coach had seen the warning signs. They had known, or at least suspected, that something was wrong. But they had chosen to ignore it. How could they have known that the lines between coaching and love would blur so dangerously? How could they have known the consequences of that one moment of weakness? The town was divided. Some pointed fingers, blaming the coach. Others blamed the boyfriend. But no one could point to one single reason for what had happened. It was a tragedy, a chain of decisions that spiraled out of control, affecting everyone. Her memory would live on, but it was now a memory filled with pain, a reminder of what was lost and what could never be repaired. The cheerleader was laid to rest, but the scars she left behind were far from gone. Her family would never be the same. Her friends, the town, even the coach, they would all carry the weight of this loss forever. One tragic moment, one terrible choice, and a community was forever changed. No one would ever forget the cheerleader, or the lives that had been torn apart in the wake of her death. And as the town moved on, the question remained, how do you rebuild from something like this? How do you live when the pain is still so raw and the silence so loud? What drives people to cross boundaries, to step into places they know they shouldn't be? And how does something as beautiful and pure as love turn into something deadly? We often think of love as something that brings people together, something that heals. But sometimes, love can tear everything apart. It can cloud judgment, blind us to the dangers, and make us believe we can get away with anything. For the boyfriend, it began with love. But it was more than just love. It was possessiveness, insecurity, and jealousy. All those emotions tangled together, and in the end, they were more than he could handle. For the coach, it was the temptation, the secrecy, the knowledge that what they were doing was wrong, but also that it felt too good to stop. They knew the risks, but love, or at least the idea of it, made them feel alive. The consequences didn't seem real until it was too late. And then there's society, the judgment, the whispers in the hallways. Society loves to point fingers, to label, to judge. But what if it's society that's the real culprit? What if the pressure to conform, to live up to others' expectations, is what makes us reach for things that we shouldn't? Things that can destroy us. In the end, it wasn't just the boyfriend or the coach who paid the price. It was the cheerleader. And it was her family, her friends, and the town that had once known her. Because when love becomes toxic, it doesn't just hurt the people involved. It destroys everyone in its path. Could this have been prevented? That's the question everyone asks. And the truth is, we'll never really know. We can look back and try to find the signs, the moments where things could have changed. But sometimes, the answers aren't as clear as we want them to be. What if the boyfriend had been able to accept the truth? What if the coach had stepped back, seen the consequences before it was too late? What if the cheerleader had found a way to escape the pressure? The truth is, love isn't always enough. It's not enough to erase doubts, to mask insecurities, or to make everything okay when the world feels like it's falling apart. And sometimes, in our search for love, we forget that the boundaries we cross can leave scars that never heal. When emotions spiral out of control, when jealousy and secrecy take hold, they can lead to things we can't undo. Things that rip apart everything we thought we knew about ourselves and the people around us. In the end, this story is a reminder of how fragile we are, how easily we can unravel when love turns toxic, and how the choices we make, whether out of love, jealousy, or desperation, can change lives forever. Stay aware, stay true to yourself, and above all, don't let love blind you to the dangers that lie ahead. Stories like this are tragic, but they leave behind lessons that must never be forgotten. This is a story of love, betrayal, and loss. A story that didn't have to end the way it did. It's a reminder of the dangers that lie beneath the surface when secrets are kept, and when emotions are left unchecked. The cheerleader, full of promise and dreams, never saw how quickly those dreams could unravel. Her love, though real, was built on secrecy, on things that couldn't be said aloud. And in the shadows of that secrecy, lies began to form. Lies that would destroy everything. The coach, once admired and respected, became entangled in a web of their own making. What started as a connection, a quiet understanding, turned into something dangerous. They too believed in the promise of love, but it was a love that came with consequences they never fully understood. And then there was the boyfriend, betrayed, heartbroken, and lost in a world where trust had been shattered. His love had turned into something darker, something driven by jealousy and anger, until one moment of rage destroyed it all. This tragedy didn't have to happen. It could have been prevented if the secrets had been exposed sooner, if the honesty had been there from the start. But the truth is, emotions, when left unchecked, can turn from a whisper into a roar. They can take over and leave no room for reason, no space for redemption. But what is the lesson in all this? It's not just about love. It's about honesty, trust, and the importance of being true to ourselves. When we hide parts of ourselves from the world, when we bury the truth in the dark, we create the conditions for chaos to thrive. Could this tragedy have been avoided? Was there a way to stop it before it reached this point? Or was it destined to happen? A tragic outcome of emotions running wild, unchecked, and uncontrollable. The answers may never come, but what we can do is learn. Learn to be honest, to control the emotions that rule us, and to never let secrecy and lies grow into something that can't be undone. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep these lessons alive, so that we may never repeat them.